the first thing a new president is going to have to do is put forth a broader vision of America and the world, America's relations with the rest of the world, in the context of which he also envisions a role for the Arab-Israeli issue or the Middle East. And I think those are the kind of things that has to be prepared very quickly, because I believe that's what people are going to be watching for. But let me turn to specific recommendations that are in the memo, much of which, as you can imagine, I agree with, particularly since I participated in the project, but I just want to introduce some caveats. First, on the issue of political reform and economic reform in the Arab world. It's obviously an important issue, and from the Middle Eastern point of view, that is one that they ought to be a priority for the region. It's important that the international community help. It's important that the United States help with that, and I think the specific recommendations on how to do it are good ones in the paper. But we have to keep in mind two things. One, it is wrong to assume that that is the core of our problem with the Arab and Muslim world. It's wrong to assume that that is a real reason why we have political terrorism facing the U.S. I think that should be good in itself. It's tied a little bit, but that is not the core of the problem. We have to be mindful of that. And the second point I want to make is something that Tamara has touched on a little bit, which is that we have to reconcile ourselves to a strategic dilemma that we have. So long as we have a major military footprint in the region, really a dominating military footprint in the region, so long as we're at war in the region, so long as we're committed to particular outcomes in the Arab-Israeli issue on strategic level, we are, by default, the allies of the mechanisms of repression in the region, because our allies are the governments that control the security forces and the militaries, which are the allies of our security forces, intelligence, and the militaries in the implementation of the broader strategic aims that we have, such as winning a war in Iraq, bringing about stability, maintaining our military presence, and, as Tamara said, persuade people to support certain policies on Hamas or Fatah or the Palestinian Authority. And that obviously works perhaps in a trumping way against our effort to democratize and reform. We have to understand that our effort towards reform is very much tied to our strategic policy.